So this is Darwin Goodson exploiting a child for money. Oh boy. So he says, shame on you people out there that have taken a child and used it for money gains. You are trying to do it. It has nothing to do with protecting a child. And, well, you know what? Nobody has done this. Then he goes on to say, and people are starting to see through what you people are doing. You're willing to use this child for dollars in your own pocket. That is at least how I see it. And I made the comment, nobody is using the money except Michelle, who's using it for a paycheck. And nobody's using it for clicks and views either. But this is what he said. How it comes off is maybe that you ain't the case. That ain't the case. You should explain yourself, because even what took place yesterday, exploiting that child to get clicks and views, and running to your puppet master to get info on what was going on. Travis and Jeremy never did anything for views and clicks. A child has the right to live as a child. A child has the right to have fun and enjoy herself. We as adults have no business stepping in and changing that for them. This is an exploitation that will follow that child for the rest of that child for life, and everyone that's doing that should be ashamed if you are going out there and giving her accolade around. Okay, well, any damage that's being done is being done by Michelle and John. This has nothing to do with you, Travis and Jeremy. And then he goes on and says, what I'm doing is destroying what they're doing is destroying a child because you do not like the parents. And I do consider the one a parent, even though not on the adoption papers. But when you go out there and destroy because you dislike somebody so bad, and your syndrome of dislike is so bad you're willing to throw that child under the bus for your own gains, you should all be ashamed of yourself. Okay. Nobody is destroying that child. And I still say that adoption is not real. And then the other note was, nobody threw the child under the bus for their own gains, like he accuses everybody. This guy has a hard-on about just about anything, especially people trying to make money off of YouTube. Alright, so he goes on to say, you're willing to step on a child to get to the parents, you are hurting the child. No one is stepping on the child to get to the parents. I'm not making that very, very clear. And then he goes on to say, and most of you don't because it is money for the most time you really believe that you. Nobody's using that child for money except for Michelle. Oh boy, this guy is something else. Then he goes on to say, doing that to a child phony protection, or I shouldn't say protection, but phony reports of neglect has been unfounded and unfounded and unfounded. Then you come up with excuses why they were wrong. Well, you are wrong for trying to destroy that child, because it's exactly what you are doing. You are not helping that child at all. Okay, CPS was called on Michelle, I don't know how many times, and they didn't find anything. That's because they didn't do their job, and they dropped it. And for the record, Mr. Darwin Goodson, nobody is destroying that child. Then he said, you may think that it's funny because you're getting the money and all this crap. Nobody's getting money from any of this. Nobody's getting money from any of this. Then he goes on and says, you won't see it because the money has taken over logic. Yes, I don't care if you go out and make millions of dollars. That's all well and fine. It's nobody's business but your own. But when you're trying to do it on the back of a child to get to the parents, to get money in your account, you're shameful human beings. Travis and Jeremy are not doing these things. And never tried to do anything to the mother. And never did anything to make money off of this. And then he goes on and says, clueless the child does not be walked over for you guys to get the parents. Again, nobody walked over the child to get to the parents. They are, and how God-fearing they are, but they are willing to step over this child to get to the parents. Again, I will say this again. Nobody is stepping over that child to get to the parents. Then he goes on and says, and you're putting that in her head. Now once she grows up, that will be in her head. You are destroying that kid from within, and you don't give a damn. Because the money and the views are more important to you than a child. Shame on every one of you. Okay. And the note that I put on one of them was, the only damage that's being caused, and get this through your head, okay? The only damage that's being caused is what Michelle and John are doing to that little child. This has nothing to do with Jeremy or Travis. Jeremy and Travis are not trying to destroy that child. And again, and the second part of that, Jeremy and Travis are not using it for views or for money. And then he goes on and says, when you go out there and do this to this he stutters, this child does not deserve what is happening to her. Well, anything is happening to that little girl is because of John Cook and Michelle Preston. It's not Jeremy, it's not Travis, it's not any of us. Then he goes on and says, Dave, he talks about giving stickers and saying that little girl didn't go out there and scream Super Dave, that she was screaming Super Dave at the mailbox. Well, mailbox is not a hole in the fence facing Tubetown. And the note that I put on here was Travis got it on his live stream. And they taught her to do that. Just like they play music to try and get Travis copyrighted. It's all a do. These people are teaching this little girl how to do this. How can you sit there and defend their actions? You don't see it, do you? And then he goes on, suggesting this was the same one that said these signs that somebody made walking out, making out a person to be you, to be a you know what was wrong, but it's still not proven. So, Mr. Darwin Goodson, I hate to tell you this, but in the Ohio court hearing, okay, John admitted that Michelle wrote the signs and he posted them. And you can't dispute that. And then he goes on to say, they did this, but it's okay to reverse it and do the other way. You guys are pathetic. Doing this, it has nothing to do who you like or what you don't like. Is what you are doing to a child. Every one of you should be ashamed. Well, again, nobody is doing anything to that child except Michelle and John. And then he goes on again. Whatever, there's nothing wrong with that, but when you exploit that child for your monetary gains, well, Travis and Jeremy did not exploit that child for monetary gains. Michelle is the only one using that child as a paycheck. And then he goes on. It's not you know as you know. I'm not mentioning any names on here. Yeah, because you don't want to mention names on here because you don't want to get your sorry ass sued. He goes, wide enough for where a certain person has minions, and because they're writing on this back for views and money, which is shameful itself, when you got to exploit a child. First of all, Jeremy and Travis are not exploiting a child. For money and views. Anybody exploiting that child is Michelle, using it for a paycheck. Alright, to get what you want, very, very much part of the problem and not the solution. And no people are out there doing that are not real Christians. They can say they are real Christians, them are words, them are not, but actions say different. Well, Mr. Darwin, I'm a Christian. And I believe in Jesus, and I believe in God. And I believe that God sent His Son to this earth to die for my sins. But what you're doing is, if you're saying that you're a Christian, why are you bearing false witness against people? Okay, then he goes on. In this case, ethics is to leave that child alone. Quit exploiting that child for your own gain. Shame on you. Not a one of you should be hanging your head high over this incident yesterday. Well, he's talking about that incident with the little girl screaming Super Dave through a hole in the fence, and like I said, Travis's video proves that. Yeah, Travis's video proves that. And as far as I'm concerned, Jeremy and Travis are not, again, I will explain that Jeremy and Travis are not exploiting this child for monetary gains or views. And the only one exploiting that child for money is Michelle. And then he goes on, think about what they are doing to that child. No, it's not direct because they are using adults and not the child. The only ones using that child is Michelle and John. And Michelle and John are being sued for their actions and unfortunately the child got caught in it. I was just trying to read. Fighting for the rights and this child. You are going to do this because it is wrong. You're all a bunch of phony attitudes. Well, and I put in this note that we're not trying to do anything to the little girl. We are worried about her living conditions and her health and her well-being. But like I said, you don't see it that way. You are blinded by the hatred that the two fleas have put out. Okay. Protection, dummy. If it was for your protection, why are you driving slow? If something was going to happen, it's more likely to happen when you're driving slow. Logic, people. Well, see, Jeremy drives by their property slow because every time he turns around, they're violating the civil protection order that's against them. That's why he films that. That's why he drives slow, because they keep engaging in this behavior and violating that protection order. And he has every right to film from the public road. People don't destroy a monument that is on somebody else's property. Okay, well, he said talking about destroying that monument. So I want you to show me proof that it was Jeremy that destroyed the monument. And if he did take the monument down, the second monument down, it's because they probably didn't have permission to put it on his property in the first damn place. And he said, now it still goes back to a child. And that what you're doing to that child, and I'm going to repeat this again. I do not care if you like this other person or you don't like him doing this and backing this person up for doing what they are doing with this child and everybody else that's doing this with this child. It's just bad human being. Okay, nobody's doing anything to the child except John and Michelle. And then he goes on, says, whether you like that person or dislike that person, that child should never have been used. Again, nobody is using that child except for Michelle as a paycheck. So you do that, you are sixth offense of what you are doing. Why is it okay for you to destroy a child to get to the parents, obviously? Again, we are concerned about the child's well-being, the health, and the living conditions. And then he goes on and says, going to pat yourself on the back for what you are doing to her. You're exploiting it when it's wrong. Again, I will repeat, nobody is exploiting that child for anything. The only one exploiting that child is Michelle and John. You can't do it because the dollar signs of evil have taken over Nobody's doing this for money. Nobody's making money off of this whole thing. Doing this to a child, long-term effects are going to bring it out. Well, any effects that child's going to have is caused by Michelle and John, and not Jeremy. They're the ones that are teaching the child to do stuff. You talk about shameful. What you all are doing in the anti-what the hell's ecosystem is shameful. It's shameful that you are attacking this man for no reason. And then he goes on. You ain't got the guts to come out and say the truth, because you know you would offend more people with the truth, and you probably lose subscribers if you did. Okay, I just had to read, but I know exactly what I'm going to say here. Okay, first of all, none of you have shown any factual proof to any accusation that you have made about Jeremy. Not one. Not one. Not one thing have you shown factual proof about Jeremy. In the 8 months that you've been trashing that man, you haven't said a damn thing or shown a damn thing as far as proof, any kind of evidence. I don't know why I added that to it. So that's it. Thank you for watching.